All right, so I'm picking up with section 2.1, and here's my second video. Remember, I told you I was going to split this into two, so it didn't turn out to be so long. So we're still combining like terms. As I look through this expression that I'm seeing here, I see 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. I hope you see 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. And I see 2 of them where the letters match, the variables are matched, and also the exponents. And then I see another 2 where the variables and the exponents are matched. So let me put in an extra step, which eventually you will probably want to skip. I'm just doing a little rearranging here so that the 2 x terms are sitting together and the 2 y terms are sitting together. Notice a couple of important things that happened here because this subtraction is attached to the x here. Notice how I bring that along with it, and I'm actually thinking of that now in my mind as a negative x. And this subtraction, or the negative 3y, notice how I'm keeping that sign attached to that term. So that's a really important thing to pay attention to. All right, so now I'm seeing my like terms, 2x minus 1x. So the 2 minus 1 are the numerical coefficients, and that's what I'm going to operate on. And over here, I'm going to have a minus 3 minus 1, and then the variable y. So to finish this up, I would have x minus 4y. And again, notice out here in front of this x, there is an understood 1, which is what we got from this 2 minus 1 here. All right, so this next one has a couple of decimals in it. I see 3 terms here. I hope you're seeing 3. 1, 2, 3 terms held together by multiplication, separated in this case by addition. And as I'm looking through, I see that these 2 terms are the variable terms that are alike, and then there is a constant term, positive 9, that doesn't match anything else, so he's just going to trail along here. So let's see, I'll take the negative 0.9 and the positive 0.6 and keep that attached to the letter B. Just bring along this 9, and then the negative 0.9 added to the positive 0.6 gives me a negative 0.3. There's the variable b that remains attached, and then here's the plus 9, which is unlike the other term, so I'm going to stop right there. And I'm going to scroll on down and do this a little more complicated one. They're getting a little longer as we look through them. I see here in the middle 2 terms that match. They both contain xy, xy. The others, no, don't really match. So I've got a 3x squared there that does not have a match. And I've got a positive y squared here that does not have a match. So what I'm going to do is keep those terms because they don't match anything else. They're not alike. And then on this xy term, I'll be combining the 4 and the negative 5. So again, picking up those numerical coefficients and combining them. And it looks like I'm going to end up with a 3x squared. This is going to give me a negative 1xy, and I'm not writing that 1 down. And then out here on the end is the y squared. And you can see now that all 3 of those terms are now different. There are no 2 that are alike, so I'm ready to stop. All right, so as we scroll down into this next section, you'll see me using something called the distributive property, which means when you have a number written right up next to parentheses with no pluses or minus, that's understood to be a times operation. So you're going to see me distribute the 3 over that parentheses using multiplication, and I'll do the same with the 2 over the second parentheses using multiplication. So here is a 6x. Remember, this is a 1, so 3 times 1. Remember, this is a 1, 2 times 1, and this is a negative 1, so 2 times negative 1. So all I'm doing there is working on multiplying the numerical coefficients. Now that I've done that, I'm through with the distribution part. So I'm noticing here a couple of terms that contain the variable x and 2 more terms that contain the variable y. So I'm going to combine the numerical coefficients on the x terms, and I'm going to combine the numerical coefficients on the y terms. So it looks like I'm going to end up with 8x plus, again, 1y, and I'm not going to write down the 1. I'm just going to leave it understood. And scrolling down, the third one down here, I see a multiplier of 4. Do you see this parentheses? Whoops, didn't mean for that to happen. You see this parentheses with a 4 coming after. I call that a post multiplier. There's nothing in here, so you understand that to be multiplication. So you're going to see me multiplying in a backwards direction here. So I'm going to take this 4 and distribute it sort of in reverse order. So that's the way it looks. Remember, this was a 1 after I multiply by that 4 to each of those 3 terms, and then just copy down these other 2 terms out here while you continue on with your work. Now that you've finished with the distributing part, you want to start to look through here and see things that contain exactly the same variable with exactly the same exponent. And I'm seeing some like terms there, so let me go ahead, remembering there's a 1 here. I think I'm going to skip a step here now, so I'm doing 4y squared plus 1y squared is 5y squared. And then 12y plus 3y is 15y. And then don't lose track of this positive 8. You need to bring him down, even though he doesn't match any of the other terms. So when you get to that point where there are no matching or like terms, that's where you're ready to stop. All right, so the last thing I wanted to do in here is to look at evaluating. How do you evaluate an algebraic expression? Well, you take the variable in the expression and replace it with a fixed number or a constant. And generally, you're going to be assigned at the beginning of the problem what the values are for your variables. So as I look at this first example, I can see that x is going to be equal to 4 and y is going to be equal to 3. This is the expression here. So I'm going into the expression. I'm going to leave out or leave a vacant spot for the variables, and then in place of the variables, I'm going to put in a 4 for x and a 3 for y. So that's the substitution part. Now I have to do the evaluating part. And the evaluating part forces me to go back and remember the order of operations, which is a protocol list of what comes first, second, third, and fourth. So you can see up there at the top, I've made notes. Inside the parentheses, I don't see anything here that I need to work on. I don't see any exponents that I need to take care of. But when I get to the third step, the third priority, it says multiplication comes, or division comes next in my priority list. So I'm going to go ahead and get this multiplication done. And once the multiplication is done, then the last thing in my order of operations is to combine. So let's see, 20 minus 15 is 5, 5 minus 5. Looks like this turns out to be equal to 0 when x is 4 and when y is 3. So that's the way you evaluate. I've got a couple more down here I wanted to show you. Here's one where x is assigned the value 4 and y is assigned the value 3. So again, I'm going in here and I'm copying the expression by writing down all of the numbers, the fixed values, and the exponents, and then I'm going to replace the variable x and the variable y with the value that the problem has given me here. And again, they're going to give you values and they're going to give you an expression. So as I think through my order of operations, please excuse my dear multiplication, division left to right, Aunt Sally addition and subtraction left to right. I'm going to look for anything inside the parentheses. I don't see anything to do there. But the next item in my list is exponents. So I'm going to do my exponent operations next. 4 times 4, 3 times 3, copy the rest. Okay, so I've taken care of the exponents in this expression. Now I'm ready for the multiplication. This is going to be negative 80. This is going to be 54. And just copy down that minus 6. So I've taken care of the multiplication and division. And now I'm going to do the addition and subtraction. So let's see, negative 80 and positive 54, I think, is negative 26. Yes, that looks right. And negative 26, and copy down this negative 6. So it looks like this is going to turn out to be negative 32. And of course, you can use your calculator to help you with some of these numbers. All right, I think I have one more here for evaluation, and it was in a fraction form, rational expression, rational meaning fraction in math. And we have 3 variables on this one. You see here the values that we're going to be plugging in for the variables, and then this piece right here is the expression. A little bit later we'll be talking about the difference between an expression and an equation. An expression is just some sort of term or a group of terms. When we do equations later in this chapter, you're going to see a left side set equal to a right side. That will be the distinguishing characteristic between expression and equation. So again, you see me copying down the expression, leaving out the variable parts, and then coming back and looking to my assignments, my numerical assignments for the variable parts. So there are my substitutions. All right, so again, my order of operations, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And something I wanted to say about this one that's in rational form, you want to complete everything in a numerator and complete everything in a denominator before you perform the division. Because this fraction bar here serves as a symbol of inclusion. It tells you that you need to work on everything in the numerator, work on everything in the denominator, get all of that settled, and then you can go ahead and take care of any division at the end. So let me just look on the numerator first. I see some multiplication here in this numerator, which has priority. I'm just going to copy down the 2 for a minute while I do that multiplication. And in the denominator, I see some multiplication, so let me go ahead and do that. But I'm not quite done up here in the top, so let me keep going because I'm supposed to finish everything in the numerator and everything in the denominator before I start to think about reducing, in this case, or dividing. So if you'll remember your rules, your sign rules, when you take 2 negatives and you divide them, you end up with a positive result. So this value that I'm going to end up with here is going to be positive. It isn't necessary to write down that positive. I'll write it just for emphasis right now. And I'm going to take this 22 and split it up into 2 times 11. And the 20, I'm going to split up into 2 times 10. And the only reason I did that is I realized that each of these is divisible by a common factor of 2. So it looks like I'm going to end up with 11 over 10. That's in rational expression or fraction form, or if you wanted it in decimal form, you could put it in decimal form. And that's where you'll need to read your instructions and make sure that you're following the instructions on how they want the answer displayed. All right, so that's a good place to stop.